Pfizer had always believed she was invisible, not in the literal sense, but in the way that mattered most in the eyes of those who walked past her every day. She sat on the same worn bench in the university courtyard, always in the corner where the old oak tree cast its shadow, always with her books clutched to her chest like a shield. Students rushed by in clusters, their laughter echoing off the brick walls, but none of those sounds were meant for her. She had learned to make herself small. Her dupatta was always pulled forward, creating a barrier between her face and the world. Her eyes stayed fixed on the pages before her, though sometimes the words blurred into meaningless shapes. It was safer this way to be unseen, to be forgotten, to exist in the margins of other people's stories. Fizz's classmates had their own circles, their own inside jokes, their own weekend plans that never included her. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself she preferred the company of books to people anyway. But late at night, when the dormitory fell silent and moonlight streamed through her window, the loneliness pressed against her chest like a physical weight. "Is this seat taken?" The voice startled her so completely that her book nearly slipped from her hands. Fiza looked up to find a tall boy with kind eyes and an easy smile standing beside her bench. He wore a faded denim jacket and carried a worn leather satchel over one shoulder. His name was Stein. She knew because he was in her literature class, though they had never spoken. No," she stammered, immediately shifting to make room, even though the bench was already mostly empty. But Stein didn't just sit down. He didn't perch on the edge as if planning a quick escape, the way people sometimes did when forced to share space with her. Instead, he settled in comfortably, turning slightly toward her as if her presence mattered, as if she was someone worth his attention. "I've seen you here before," he said, his voice warm and genuine. "You're always reading. What's captivating you today?" Fiza blinked, certain this was some kind of mistake or joke. People didn't ask her about books. People didn't ask her about anything. It's just Wuthering Heights," she murmured, holding up the dogged paperback. "Just Wuthering Heights." Stein's eyebrows rose with interest, not mockery. "That's one of the most intense love stories ever written. Heathcliff and Catherine, their passion could set the moors on fire." Something flickered in Fizz's chest, a small, fragile thing like the first spark of a match. "You've read it 3 times, Stein admitted with a grin. "I'm a hopeless romantic disguised as a practical engineering student. Don't tell anyone, it would ruin my reputation." And just like that, they were talking. Not the stilted, obligatory conversation of classmates forced together for a group project, but real dialogue that flowed like water finding its course. Stein asked questions and actually listened to her answers. He challenged her interpretations and shared his own. He laughed at her observations and made her laugh in return. A sound so unfamiliar in her own throat that it startled her the next day. When Fiza arrived at her usual bench, Stein was already there, 2 cups of chai in hand. "I figured you might need caffeine for our next literary debate," he said, offering her one. "I'm prepared to defend the thesis that Emily Brontë was actually writing about the destructive nature of obsession, not love." Fiza took the cup with trembling hands, steam rising between them like a question. "You came back." "Of course I came back." Stein's expression grew serious for a moment. "Fiza, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're fascinating. The way you see stories, the connections you make, it's like you understand the human heart better than most people ever will." She felt something crack inside her, some carefully constructed wall beginning to crumble. "Most people don't think I'm worth noticing, but most people are fools." Stein's voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. "I see you, Fiza, and what I see is someone extraordinary." The days turned into weeks, and their bench became their kingdom. Stein brought books to share, pastries to split, questions that made her think and laugh and feel alive in ways she had forgotten were possible. He didn't just sit beside her, he made space for her in his world, introducing her to his friends, inviting her to study sessions, treating her presence as a gift rather than an inconvenience. One afternoon, as autumn leaves swirled around their feet, Fiza found the courage to ask the question that had been haunting her. "Why me, Stein? Why did you sit down that first day?" Stein was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "Do you know what I saw when I first noticed you? Everyone else saw a girl alone on a bench, but I saw someone who didn't need the crowd to define her worth. Someone strong enough to exist independently. That takes courage, Fiza, real courage." He turned to face her fully, and his eyes held something that made her heart race. "You were never unwanted. You were just waiting for someone who could see your crown." Fiza felt tears prick her eyes, but these were different from the ones she'd cried alone in her room. These were tears of recognition, of being truly seen for the first time. Stein didn't see her as less than he saw her as she truly was, and more importantly, as she could be. "Thank you," she whispered, "for teaching me that I was never invisible. I was just looking for someone with the right eyes." Stein smiled and gently squeezed her hand. "Queens don't need everyone to recognize them, Fiza, they just need to remember their own royalty." And that, beneath the oak tree that had witnessed her loneliness, Fiza began to understand that being unwanted was just a story she had told herself. The truth was far more beautiful. She had always been worthy. She had just been waiting for someone to reflect that truth back to her and for herself to finally believe it.